Well, good evening and welcome. This is a sort of a different program than what a lot of you who follow um, this streaming service is accustomed to, and I'm going to explain it. But I'm your host, Richard Blackford, and I want to use the opportunity to welcome you to this conversation. Now, today we're going to take on this issue of, I call it live to learn, learn how to live. And it's essentially a conversation presented by myself, um, focusing on lived experiences. In other words, how does one actually live to learn? And by extension, how does one learn how to live? Now, we are all operating in this uh, social media driven environment. And I came across the term about live to learn, which I took some issue with, and so I posted it on my social media page, my Facebook page, largely, just to sort of get a test of if people understood the concept, if you will. And so, having done that, kind of watched the playing out. And one thing that jumped out at me is the way the kind of response information or the kind of responses that you got back. In other words, it kind of exposed to a large extent how so many of us who are in this social media space, how we use this whole social media thing. And I thought, this is something that we should really take some time to try to understand. Now, um, let me ask a question. How many of you out there are actually find yourselves from time to time being overwhelmed by the what I want to call this, the kind of overload, if you will, the of social media information? How many have you have felt overwhelmed by your to read list, or you felt guilty because you probably never took a particular course, or you didn't follow a particular direction, um, especially one that's put out on this social media platform? Now, this whole social media thing is a big draw for a lot of people. People are on social media for multiple reasons, and so and they use the platforms um, differently. There is the the desire to want to look bright, the desire to 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 compare, to contrast, to compete with others who come on social media and them express themselves as um, being, successful or more successful than you are. And so what you get is this challenge to your persona, because if you don't have the grounding, you want to be like the people that you're seeing on social media. And so it's a big challenge that faces a lot of people, a lot more people than you would perhaps want to acknowledge. For example, on some 48% of teenagers who are on social media has a mostly well, they maintain that social media has a negative effect on them, and you know a good 48% of these teenagers feel social media have a negative effect on them, and again another 45% of them accept that they may spend far too much time on social media. Having said that, it's not that they're saying social media is a bad thing, because 87% of Gen Z personnel interviewed say social media, that's where they get most of their information from. They use TikTok for product discovery. 61% of them use it. The users turn to Instagram where they make their purchase. So the whole social media landscape is changing the way how we do things. 35% of people on social media tell you that they get their news stories from social media, and it's their main reason for using social media. And as a consequence of which, the news consumption on social media is significantly higher. 63% of Gen Z say they get their news from TikTok. 50% of adult users visit social media to learn about brands, particular products, brands, etc. And the 71% of them, the users on TikTok, use the platform for brand or product information, and that has been going on for a long time. So these are some of the challenges that, as a user on social media, that it basically throws at you. And so you end up with what I call this information overload. A lot of the people who are on social media will tell you, they are on social media and they use it for what they call casual browsing, meaning they go on the platform not for any reason. So the social media platforms, to a large extent, are providing websites that people go on for no particular reason. In other words, unlike if you're going to be searching for a product where you go to Macy's or Target, so you have a specific reason. Most of the users are on social media for no reason whatsoever. It's entertainment, or it's a way to pass the time. And so out of this comes this desire, because for a lot of people who are on social media for such a long time and to spend so much time, what they then find themselves doing is that you want to look like you know what you're talking about. You want to sound bright. You want to be brighter than the next man. And so your attempt in terms of your usage of the platform is to essentially use it to gather and then to show how much you know about anything. And this is it's not deep learning. It's very peripheral. It's just providing people with outlines in terms of particular subject matter. And the problem is that it's like listening to a 1 hour speech, and then you turn up after hearing an hour of the presentation, you remember a 20-second piece of the presentation, and you then regurgitate that as the entire 1 hour presentation. So it's what it does is it puts the user in a position where you're basically trying to collect knowledge as if this knowledge is trophy. And the question you really ask yourself, and I ask myself that from time to time, is that am I using this to be a better person? Now, I spend an inordinate amount of time on social media because it is a platform through which I do my business. I run a website. I have a multiple of different types of programming, and I am, accepting that these social media platforms gives me a template, it gives me a portal that will take me to my audience, or I can build my audience out of it. So for me, social media is a business. And what I try to do is, I'm in the information providing business. So apart from consuming information, I try to stay abreast of so that I can provide people with meaningful discourse on issues that they may not have given any particular thought to. And so again, let me just use the opportunity to welcome those of you joining us. If you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, welcome. And feel free to pose questions. There are comments. If you have questions, I'll bring them in under the comment the comment template. Now, so we're on this social media drive, and the impetus is to use it. You know, you want to show who you are, what is the placement, how much you know, right? And so the question is, if you take the first part of the thing about living to learn, and then you know, what does living to learn actually means? Again, we say hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people even are on social media on any given hour of the day. And so they are using the platform for different reasons. You know, we talk about this whole business of productivity or underproductivity or counterproductivity. And so for those of us who are using the platform for business, it's a productive activity. If you're using the platform for, you know, increasing your knowledge in terms of what you know, what you learn, what you can understand, again, it is what you're doing is attempting a positive use of the social media platform. Now, it says here, saving hundreds of articles, buying online courses you never take, filling your podcast queue with material that you're going to go back to watch or to look at with more intent. How many of us find ourselves in a position where you're plugging in all of this information that you're going to go back to look at it, and that you actually do it? Or how much pressure is applied to you to spend this time? The act, they say, of acquiring knowledge feels like progress, but is it really progress? If you are hoarding all of this information to go back to go look at it, and you're doing this on a daily basis, obviously over a period of time, more than 2/3, even 3/4 of the information you're hoarding, you're never ever going to use. And so the part of having this conversation here is to try to make people's utilization of social media or social media platforms a little bit more, well, hopefully a lot more productive to them than just wasting time. Now, for me, living and learning are two associative topics. As I said to a friend of mine this morning, if you're born, there's one thing that is certain, is that you're going to die. And so it comes down to then, what are you doing with your life? How are you utilizing your time? You know, how do you, with each passing day, passing hour, put yourself in a position where you're better off for the utilization of your time? Learning things to signal intelligence or expertise on social media rather than for genuine growth, that's a term that is referred to as performative learning. It is about crafting an identity as a learner without the transformation that true learning requires. So to come back to my earlier point, being on social media in an effort to look good, because you know, I write a lot, and I share a lot of the information that I put out, and sometimes people jump on a topic and immediately you realize from the response that they haven't actually read what it is that you have written, or you post a video which is a couple of minutes, and what I look at is the initial picture that they're getting on the video. So whatever the video, the image that identifies the video on, that is what they're responding to. And how many of us actually really do that and do it consciously or unconsciously? The issue is social media is a kind of space where people want to show that they're better than, to a large extent, than they actually really are. There was a story that crossed my path recently of this woman who, she wears red bottom shoes. She drives the fanciest of motor cars. But deep down, she don't live anywhere. She is catching with friends. She has about 3 or 4 friends that she alternates with on a day-to-day basis, which is how she lives. But she is presenting on a social media platform that she's something, somebody that she really isn't. And so what that is doing is essentially presenting an image based on the kind of challenges that she's facing in a social media platform. And when somebody eventually collared her about it, and she took the time to step back, and she said, you know, she had gone to college with a number of girls or girlfriends who she sees them now. They're holding down, you know, big professional positions, which she wanted to be able to identify with, but she isn't. And one of the things you learn in this social media space is that in as much as there are millions of people on social media, is one of the fastest ways of transmitting information, you know. And so each of us is about 7 times removed from the other person. But what that also means is that it is easy to connect people based on the circles that they're operating with, right? I, for one, again, you know, I use social media to stay in touch with a lot of people that I actually went to school with over time, whether this is my high school years or my college years, or people who I worked with in my, you know, back in the day when I was in the work world. And they, you know, at my age, a lot of the people that I went to school with are now dropping out. And sometimes you will notice that somebody, you haven't seen them in a social media environment for a while, and the next thing you hear is that they're gone. So it's a way for keeping in touch, right? Live to learn is about staying curious, is about gathering insights, right? And so just to get back to that original definition, gathering insights, and you gather insights from other people, the interactions you have with the people you do these day-to-day interactions with. You gather insights from the material that you consume, whether you're reading books, whether you are magazines, or you're, you know, you have active searches on different platforms where you are gathering information on stuff that is important to what you do. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that people who master that kind of loop where you're gathering information, which is, for example, as an artist, I pay attention to the work of other artists, right? But I will not say to you that I do deep research. I did that back in as a much younger person, where there are certain artists that you gotta pay attention to. But then you will have a conversation with someone who expresses an interest in a piece of work that they have, and they go on this ramble about artists that, if you pose a solid question, you realize they don't know much about the artist. They may be aware of the couple of pieces of work from the particular artist, but they don't have an in-depth knowledge. And so how you navigate that you don't need to show people up. I mean, if we know you well enough from the quiet, I'll reach out and you know correct some of the thing. But it's important that we recognize that this is the way that the world that is social media now, right? And so it still is a teaching tool. Now this business about living to learn though, it's an idea that I'm not 100% on. I don't embrace this as a idea in its totality. For me, life is the biggest teacher, and so every single day, and I'm putting this out there because how many of us in the morning you wake up, you say thanks, because remember, a lot of people would not have made it into the new day that you are experiencing, and so for that day, you challenge yourself in terms of trying to make yourself a better person. Time and your experience is your greatest teacher, right? Um, it's fine that we all are exposed to some book learning. We have been to school at the junior, secondary, or tertiary level. But having gathered all of this book learning, the real learning comes from what you draw from your day-to-day experience, which takes you to the other side of the concept, which is about live to learn. And so they live to learn and then learning how to live. You're here. Let's make the best use of the time that we have. Let me draw from the experiences. So in my day-to-day, I have these interactions with a whole heap of people. And I pay attention to what it is that the insights that I have to provide. They say learning how to live is about cooking the meal and savoring it, while living to learn is about gathering the ingredients. And so, I'm just to bring it down in the simplest sense. Gathering the ingredients. You can go into the supermarket and you can pick up a piece of steak or some chicken cutlets or whatever it is that you would like to cook. You pick up the ingredients, the vegetables, the protein, the starch, whatever, and you bring them home. So you know that you're planning to cook something. Question is now how you're going to do it, and it is the cooking, bringing all of these ingredients together in from the perspective of cooking, and cooking that meal to the extent that you're going to be able to savor it. That becomes the learning how to live. And so every day that you wake up provides you with new experiences. Case in point, I got up when was it, on Monday morning, to learn that a guy that I've known from all the way back in the 60s when we all went into high school together, that he's no longer with us. And I did notice that I hadn't seen or heard from him for a little while. My last conversation with him would have been towards the end of last year, and so I reached out to some other people, and they told me, he had the big C is what basically took him away, right? And so drawing from the experiences that life gives you each day and putting those into effect becomes the living, that experience of living life through the experiences, right? Learning how to live. So this guy died from prostate cancer, and so it begged the question about what is your health like, and that's a question I will put out to everybody else. Whether you're male or female, when was the last time you got yourself checked, right? Um, Breast cancer, cervical cancer, these things are stuff that as you get older, especially as you get older, these become more omnipresent in your experience. So learn about them, build a relationship with the people within your surroundings, learn how to communicate if you and these are physical issues, but by the same token you have mental issues. A lot of people are out there and they are mentally challenged for all of the different reasons, whether it's relationships that's not going in the way that they wanted, or they find themselves completely alone. You know, it's not a nice challenge, especially for a lot of women in particular. You get past 45 into your 50s, and the person who you had figured was going to be with you for the rest of your life just decided, boom, and they have gone somewhere else. Or it could be that they pass on. And so the question is, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? How do you cope? And living and learning, bringing that learning how to live component in this conversation, that's what you now have to draw on. And so do you have a circle of friends that you can share information with, you can have a conversation with from time to time, you can compare notes, who have been through this situation before, and with whom you can share. Again, mental health and physical health, these are issues that at this point, as we age, you want to pay more attention to, right? Talking through experiences with a trusted friend or mentor provides new perspectives, and it helps you to solidify your insights. So you're going through something and you know that you alone, those coping mechanisms aren't there, right? Your ability to reach out and to find somebody with whom you can share is a big part of putting that active that activity, the learning how to live component, bringing it to action, right? Simply sitting with your experiences without judgment allows the meaning to surface. We need to find those coping mechanisms. For some people, keeping a sort of a journal that helps. Writing about your day, your reactions, your choices, that help you to see patterns in terms of your life experience. So, for example, you may in a group situation, you get angry as a part of the group. You want to understand what is it that is the trigger. This kind of reflection turns a random event into a lesson in emotional triggers. So by that journaling, by sharing information with the people who you have around you, that helps you in terms of your coping methods. Now, sometimes so you find life has a way to really throw you some rough challenges. So, for example, I've come across people who at a stage in my younger life, these are people who are part of the movers and shakers of the communities that I grew up in. And so 10, 20 years later, you see them and they're doing something which is considerably less than where they were. The issue, what it opens up is no, they are not coping very well with this transformation. But that's what life provides you with. Life will provide you with experiences that are always going to challenge you. And so what you want to do, you are not the thing that you do, right? I'm an accountant. You're not an accountant outside of your job. You are you. So what is it that makes you uniquely you? What are the things that are non-work issues that drive you? What is your situation with your family? Do you have children? You know, what is your relationship with those children? How are you in touch with them? And what is the level of that contact, right? Learning how to live requires first unlearning the harmful patterns that would have characterized your development. So you probably at some point there are, met a lot of women who have been in abusive relationships, and they can't manage a relationship that is a positive one because they tend to see the relationship through the lens of the abuse that they had been exposed to in previous relationships. And in a lot of instances, you carry that into the new situation. Sometimes them say, you have a man or a woman and it's not going so good. Take a break, step away. And before you get involved with somebody else, it's like having a meal or a 3 or a 4-course meal. And in order to enjoy the new course, what you need to do is to cleanse your palate. Okay? Drink some water. What it does is that it washes out the taste of the previous course out of your mouth. And so your taste buds now are alive. Your taste buds are alive to allow you to enjoy the new experiences that are out there for you to think. The other thing too is that it provides you with an opportunity to develop clarity so that you, instead of jumping in feet first, you take the time to measure, to weigh, to look at the signals. Because one of the worst things for anybody, man or woman, is to jump from one relationship to the next one, right? Because invariably what you do is that you bring the baggage from the previous one into the new relationship. And then you find out you end up with a situation where you have 1, 2, 3, 4 successive relationships, one after the other, in very short spaces of time. And all you then end up looking like is a statistic, or people will say you have miles, particularly with women, miles on your tires because you never took the time, right? You have to unlearn some of the stuff that you had picked up in order for you to be able to move forward positively. Unlearning these harmful patterns, limiting beliefs, and societal conditioning that dictate what a good life is. And again, remember, it's not about the next man, right? A lot of times you see people looking like them enjoying things good, and we all want to have that nice positive experiences. But my mother always say, you don't know how them come by what them have. So you don't want to grudge anybody for it. What you want to do is to chart a course for yourself based on the values that you would have developed over time, right? And so you have to make a conscious effort at doing that. Unlearning perfectionism. For some people, there's this desire, this need to make sure that you get it right all the time. Life is about learning. And one of the things about living is that as you go through life's journey, every now and then, you're going to fall down. You're going to fall down. The question is that when you fall down, your ability to get back up, brush yourself off, and move on, right? So your willingness and your ability to release this need to get it right and embracing what they call this good enough component, right? This, because we are all imperfect creatures, and no situation, no two situations are going to be ideal. Or what is ideal for you may not be ideal for me. So the key is knowing what it is that you're looking for out of life. Knowing that because if you know what you're looking for, when it comes, you're going to be able to recognize it, right? And so the key thing is being able to let go. So okay, I have developed a fair amount of bad habits in the course of X number of years or over this period of time. And so in order for you to be able to embrace the good side, you have to let go. You have to unlearn this thing, right? And then this quote unquote perfection that we try to drive our lives by. You have to be able to let go of that too, because what is the perfection is going to be defined differently based on the different experiences. Now, the other thing you want to do in terms of, again, and we're talking about learning how to live, is to let go of this comparison, freeing yourself from the tyranny of comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel that you're seeing on social media. We talk about that, go back to the woman with the red bottom shoes. You know, what you see is not necessarily real. A lot of people are living in their heads. And so social media and how that manifests itself, everybody have one of this. Everybody, right? And by virtue of having this, you now have access to a keyboard. And you can then create that fantasy world that you operate in. But when you catch them, it is a whole different reality. I remember when some long years ago, I, living in America, you don't know nobody. And so I went on a social, one of them dating site. No, I figured, well, I went to school on a computer, did a college degree with a good university too. And so if you can bring education out of them, almost everything else can be, brought on through the use of the technology. And so go up on a dating site, and girl posts a picture, look like Miss World. All of the Miss World them roll up in a one. And so after some exchanges back and forth, I decided, I'm gonna meet this girl. Well, make I tell you something. I walk in I think it was a Starbucks. Went to a Starbucks to go meet up with this woman. And may I tell you this, I walked past the woman about 3 times, and the person that was there waiting for me bears no relationship to the image that was portrayed on the site. And of course, there ended my sojourn down that road. But the point I'm making is that people are in this presenting thing. I marveled at the behavior, because clearly this is a person who is not thinking. Because the person that you're gonna, at some point, there has to be a physical connection between the two individuals. Okay, I'm responding to a photograph, you respond to a photograph. My expectation, if I'm reaching out to the photograph, is that the person that I'm going to connect with bears a resemblance, and it has to be a striking resemblance to the photograph that I'm responding, because that's what I'm looking for. Except that this person posts a picture of them 20 years ago, right? When they were about 150 pounds lighter, right? And if you know me, I'm not very big on the fat one thing, right? So, but I'm saying we have to allow ourselves to shed this expectation that this whole social media thing imposes on all of us, right? We want to, it's nice to be able to use these platforms to gain knowledge. So yes, you live, but not necessarily that you live to learn, right? Life brings you a lot of lessons. It is great to know that a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable. It is a fruit. But the application of that knowledge of tomato requires wisdom, and the wisdom knows that you can't put tomato in a fruit salad, right? So sometimes we feel, because we are in this media, this mass digitized environment, what we're doing is you want to stay at the top. You want to be, you want to present your best self. Your best self has to be who you are, right? Learning how to live is about developing wisdom. So come back. Tomato is a fruit. Yeah, a fruit like a cherry, like an apple, like a banana. Now, what the characteristic of all of those other fruits that I named outside of the tomato is that you can bring them together to make a fruit salad, but you wouldn't put a tomato in a fruit salad. And so learning how to live is about developing wisdom. It is the discernment to know what knowledge to apply, when to apply it, and how to apply it for the benefit of your personal well-being and for the well-being of those around you, right? One of the things I'm practicing is about living for the people with whom I interact with every day. My wife, my son, my two kids, my grandson, and the small circle of friends. That I'm not going out of the way. I'm not trying to be a different person. I'm just trying to be as good a person as I can. My objective every day is to be a better person today than I was yesterday. That is my objective. And what did I do? I try to do what is right. You have the ability, the discernment, the ability to take information, process it, to look at situations, make an analysis and an assessment of it, and then you apply your findings. And I'm challenging all of you out there. You know, if you're having stayed with this discussion, we wrap up in another couple of minutes. You know, knowledge and living and learning is about wisdom and the wisdom, developing that wisdom. This is the more wisdom is more than just knowledge. Knowledge is having information. Wisdom is having the deep understanding, insight, and judgment to know what is true, what is right, and what is lasting. And you know, on a personal, from a personal position, that is what I strive for, right? Not only about having the knowledge, but the wisdom as to how to use it and what to do with it. Applying that knowledge is now what is going to be critical, right? A situation faces you, what is the best course of action you're going to use to deal with that kind of complex situation? Applying knowledge becomes the crucial part of your existence in terms of living and learning, right? Because putting into practice the knowledge that you have, to use it, to implement, it is the act of moving something from an abstract realm to a concrete reality of action and consequences. Applied wisdom is essentially the point that I'm making, that this is a process of using deep understanding, sound judgment to navigate real life situations effectively and meaningfully. So we keep in mind, social media important because it's a way to cross thousands of miles, connect with people all over the world. particularly those with whom, because of our own mobility, them gone somewhere else and you somewhere else. It provides you with an opportunity to steer, but it also provides you with an opportunity to broaden your own community. And from this broad-based community, you are able to develop insights from the people who you interact with how they respond to particular stimuli. Don't mean that you have to copy them, but at least you can learn from them, right? And so, having learned the thing, you know, you have to train yourself in terms of the ability to use this properly and effectively, right? Simple analogy is that knowledge is reading the recipe and knowing the ingredients. Wisdom is understanding why the ingredients work together, how to adjust it for taste, for presentation, for combination, and that cooking is about nourishing people and not just about following stuff. Now, me love cook. People who know me will know that. And you know, so I draw these little analogies because they are kind of my own life chart analogies. That's what I do almost on a daily basis. Me, again, me love to cook. And you know, cooking is not just about bringing ingredients together. It's about putting those ingredients together so it nourishes the people we are feeding, right? It is about you know, nourishment. And so information and learning is about nourishing your brain. It's about nourishing your heart, your emotions, right? And living through that learning is applying all of this, right? It's the process is simple. We just need to take the time, slow down. Don't worry about John who just get a big pay increase or buy a brand new car. You don't know how he's going to pay for it, right? You have your car, you have the ability to go from point A to point B. Or if you don't have a car, you can take the bus, or you can walk, or you don't have to go. Now, most things you can do online. But it's not about trying to keep up with the next person, right? It's about being comfortable with who you are, right? And how you do what you do. You don't have to try to recreate the lifestyle of the person that thing. Are you living to impress other people? No, you are the person you have to please more than anybody else or among anybody else is yourself. Because once you are comfortable and satisfied, it's easier now to deal with other people's needs, having taken care of your own needs, right? I hope this has been helpful, right? There is a lot more that we can share, and probably we will visit this again at another time. But from time to time, I'm going to run these little sessions, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes, where we look at some of these topics. And, you know, feel free to share, participate. If you enjoy this little presentation, send me a little note. Let me know. Give me your feedback. Big respect.